Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of
You
Choose
can't
Life.
know that you're pregnant if you
Life
haven't
is
sex on
capitalized.
December 25th.
And Chris
Is
is
that what you're
taking a
saying?
call, so we're going to mute
You had
him
sex
real
on
quick.
December?
You never know when somebody's going to call looking for a pregnancy appointment, right? So, Valerie
Right.
Hill, California, San Jose. We know the song. 5 locations now. Real options. We've done a segment on a documentary for Answering the Call on Overcomers TV. And Chris Slattery's in New York City. So I would normally be in Florida, but I'm in New Mexico today. But thank you,
Yeah.
Valerie, for jumping on with Chris and I. Yeah.
Yeah. Got both coasts covered. And both.
The 2 toughest states, I might add. California and
Yeah.
New York are the 2 toughest states.
Yes, they are. Definitely. The front lines. If you're talking about the front lines for life, you got them covered.
Amen. So Chris and I have done about 11 episodes. So for our viewers, give us a little insight into you, maybe even a quick faith journey, how Jesus became real and how, now you're in the pro-life movement, you're leading these ministries.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about you.
All right. Well, 33 years ago, I became a volunteer in what was Crisis Pregnancy Center of Santa Clara County. We're now 5 medical clinics strong across the Bay Area. But prior to my journey with CPC, I had an abortion as a single mom. So I know firsthand what a horrible choice that is for women and the suffering, the emotional, spiritual suffering that can happen. It did lead me to the cross. It led me to Jesus, which is, best day of my life, to learn that he loves me and forgives me and is my savior. And that began my healing journey. Went to Bible college and graduated. It focused my missions paper the last quarter of Bible college on crisis pregnancy centers back in 1989. And then the Lord said, now go and serve. And so I've been a part of this ministry for that long.
Yeah.
Became the executive director in 2007 and CEO in around 2009 or 2010, right around there.
It's interesting too, as a side note, is we launched Horizon Media Studios January of 2008, and you were one of the first that I called because you guys were ECFA members. And we've had many conversations over the years where we'd pray for one another,
Yes.
talk about this, and you've always been very encouraging. I even went through a divorce, and man, you just like, hey, let me, and you ministered to me. So I just want to say thank you for your friendship, your encouragement. You're a faithful prayer warrior. And now here we are 15 years later doing this stuff together. It's absolutely quite amazing.
God.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you said 2009, 2010, you became CEO. Is that right?
Yeah.
And did I unmute Chris? Chris, are you unmuted? Okay, good. He was taking a call. I'm just real quick. I'm guessing that was someone looking for, he takes the calls, man. He was like, so.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's not something I do at all. I've been removed from patient services other than, upper management, really, in real options. But
who you have answering the phone is important, right? That first hello.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we don't even use volunteers anymore for that. That was our old model back in the 90s, 80s and 90s. But it's a professional, trained, certified administrative receptionist that we have, full-time staff answering the phone. Because something Real Options does that I think we do very well is have a marketing budget, a good size marketing budget. And when you're spending a couple $100,000 on digital marketing a year, that phone call matters, right? We want the phone to ring. We want appointments scheduled on our website. And so you've got to, yeah. So Chris is the best person to be answering the phone, but I don't know if he has the time really to do that. I know I don't.
Well, his wife shares the load. Right? You have Sometimes when Chris is out of pocket, his wife does it. They've been doing this for like 38 years now, I
I
think.
know, he's legendary. He's a pioneer.
And before we went live, you guys talked. You met at conferences before. You know, Chris in New York, there's a lot going on. But yeah, he'll be in Miami when they're signing a bill there, right? And wherever it's happening, I mean, this is a calling on your guys' lives. And now, again, especially with Roe v. Wade being overturned, more and more people are talking about it. Social media platforms, you almost can't have your head in the sand on this topic anymore.
No,
Chris,
you
you
can't.
want to talk? All right, the microphone. I thought I turned it back on. So let's let me make sure. I thought I turned you back on. Did I not mute you? Turn it back on. Volume up. Turn them off. Turn them on. Technical difficulties. Right click. I can remove you. And maybe if I remove you, come back in. Maybe that. Let's see if that works. Because that little mute button's not there anymore. Hold on.
Sometimes you have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I watch a lot of video interviews, and it happens all the time.
He was pointing his mouth. I thought he was like saying, "Hey, I got something to say." So yeah, so you were talking about, you know, being CEO, upper management. You have 5 locations now. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we do have an excellent organization. God has helped us to grow. And I was just in a meeting yesterday, almost all day long. We did like a recap from our community outreach and education. And our education department has grown by leaps and bounds in the last couple of years since you were here. And we did Overcomers TV together. But yes, we are in local schools again, public schools, back to where we were 10 years ago. We've surpassed, like we served about 2,400 students last year with sexual risk avoidance education and healthy relationship curriculum as well. So when we're in the 5th and 6th grades, especially, that's healthy relationships, and the older grades can be sexual risk avoidance. But these are public schools having us in, and principals and teachers doubling our hours this year over last year with the students. So it takes a lot to scale that. We have contract educators as well as staff educators, but Donna Hecky, who you met last time you were here, she's our vice president of community outreach, and she brilliantly decided last year that everyone on community outreach team, including pregnancy loss healing and education, and even the patient services staff, are all certified in this curriculum. So if we need a teacher, we have someone, because you don't want to say no to the schools when they open the door, which, you know, after the California Healthy Youth Act, which I call the Evil Youth Act, in 2015, that closed a lot of doors for us. So now they're open again, and we're grateful to the Lord for that favor to be able to reach those students.
Great. I also just invited Mike Lindell to jump on and say hello. He's been doing Lindell TV. We know he's a big advocate with the Unplanned movie. So I just said, hey, Mike, if you have a minute, jump on, say hello. We have New York and California centers on right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if he pops in here. So
that would be awesome. Yeah.
So Chris, your turn to talk. We've been carrying the show for 10 minutes now.
Well, I'm curious how, in one of the most extreme liberal states in the country, how a pro-life organization is able to get into public high schools.
Well, you know the answer. The first answer is God. He opens the doors and gives us the favor, gives us the contacts. But we started with education over 35 years ago in schools. So we had a good reputation. And like I said, the Healthy Youth Act, Evil Youth Act in 2015 really kind of cut us out of that because our curriculum would not conform to what they were asking for. But we have enough people that got active in school boards that was really the key to this one school district called Alum Rock that we're in San Jose, in East San Jose, underserved area of San Jose. One school board president that got in there from the conservative team, if you will, in San Jose, changed the mix and got us in last year at Alum Rock, all 9 6th grades. And we were so effective because of the curriculum that we have, that they doubled our hours this year with those classes. But we've also had many schools. We have boys and girls clubs. We have lots of other venues, Catholic schools, high schools. So yeah, I don't know how to answer that question.
And how do you fund these particular programs? So these,
well,
is there any government money involved?
there is this year. There is actually this year and last year. We actually have a Title V grant that we got as real options that we were awarded.
That's federal money?
Federal money.
Wow.
For sexual risk avoidance education, which we didn't think we would get under the Biden administration last year.
Wow.
Neither
God opens doors where no man can shut, and God shuts doors no man can open.
That's right.
Yeah.
He does. Yep.
Would you say that the breakthrough with them was an aberration? It was an oversight on their part? Or, I mean, how did you not get canceled?
Well, I can tell you we were a sub-grantee. I believe it was 2020. We were a sub-grantee of the Obria group, and they had received a Title V grant. And of course, they're not doing education. They're just an affiliate, right? They're a national organization. So the only ones they had to ask to do that were the clinic organizations like ours in California that had an education arm. And we did have our own 100,000, I think, line item budget for education, which our supporters eagerly support. I could definitely cover education without the federal money, because even though we're getting more and we're spending more because of the grant, and we've totally now we're not just in Santa Clara County. If you know the Bay Area, San Jose itself is way bigger than San Francisco, and area-wise, school-wise, and just population-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And so in just Santa Clara County alone, there's a lot of schools to cover. But since we have clinics in Oakland and Redwood City now, so we're talking Alameda County in the East Bay and San Mateo County to the north of us, we try to cover that territory, not just with the clinic services, but also with the education for the schools and also for pregnancy loss healing. So God gives us an open door in a territory through a merger, which he gave us an acquisition of 2 clinics in the middle of a pandemic, if you will. That's what I like to call it.
Good job.
Right. Yeah.
Right. He gave us that. I wasn't looking for that. But anyway, when we get the clinic, then we say, okay, now he's given us this territory to cover schools. And so we have to add staff to do that. And so we're grateful for the federal grant. But I know our supporters are eager to fund education. We call it prevention education, and that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. I don't know who wrote that cliche. When I get to heaven, I'm hunting down cliche writers. Somebody had to say these phrases first.
I think it was somebody like Benjamin Franklin, but I'm not positive.
That's funny. Somebody in heaven's going, "That's mine. That's mine. I said that first. That's mine." That's funny.
Valerie,
so even though they're liberals, Chris, they see the effect that teaching healthy relationships, teaching a scope and sequence like love languages in secular terms to students, and dealing with things like sexting and bullying, cyberbullying, and sexual harassment in schools, how we're dealing with it is having such a positive effect on the students that they're saying, we want more hours from you. So
That's great.
yeah,
How are you dealing with the controversy over contraception?
there's nothing to teach there, really. I mean, we're
They
mostly,
don't require you to teach it.
well, I don't believe that's covered in our curriculum, and I'm not the expert. The CEO is the last person to ask for details. But I know we don't offer it in our clinics, but we still educate. We still educate parents. We still educate patients. We still educate students, but that's not a big part of our curriculum, if it's at all in the schools. I'm not sure.
STDs, is that a big topic? I'm sure.
STDs, when we're talking about sexual risk avoidance, definitely. And letting them know that our clinics are there in the community for them for testing and treatment, so that if they want to make a new decision, right, and just start avoiding that risk in their lives, this is a good place to go and a safe place to go. But yeah, it's more about healthy relationships and optimal health than it is about the old models.
Right.
We're using a curriculum called Real Essentials that's not related to Real Options, but that's the name of the company. And you have to get your educators and our patient staff is also certified in this curriculum, so that they are optimal health coaches now instead of just advocates in the clinics.
That's good. If we have a
Yeah.
sub-show title, it'd be called Keeping It Real. And that's what we want to do, real options. And, Chris talks about this all the time. He says in New York, they want the abortion yesterday, that New York Minute thing. And you're like, wait, let's slow down. We have options. We don't have to make this decision today. So I love that about both of you guys. You're able to educate and explore options. And that's really what I hope our show, we never know who might listen in. We want to equip the church and mobilize them to be advocates and the hands and feet. But at the end of the day, because everybody's talking about this, we might start getting some views and people who are in the valley of decision. And just to know there's choices is important.
Yeah. Well, we all know that the ultrasound is the number one key. Women don't know if they have a viable pregnancy. And that's the question we always ask them. How do you know you have a viable pregnancy? How do you know you need an abortion? You need to come in and have an ultrasound. And so that is a key to the services. And then the compassionate care, honest information that we can provide them so that they can make a choice, hopefully, that they can live with, because we can't make their choices for them. But women need to know that they deserve better than abortion.
My wife was saying, Annette, she was saying that sometimes Planned Parenthood will tell the woman they're really pregnant, schedule the abortion. There really wasn't a viable pregnancy, just to
that happens.
Procedure, and a girl leaves thinking, and later down, she may have depression over something she really never did. But that's
even suicidal thoughts or suicidal attempts or alcoholism, drug addiction, eating disorders, all the things that plague women post-abortive. It is terrible. I haven't heard necessarily of that, but we are next door to Planned Parenthood in 2 locations. So they come out of their door and into our door. And they've come out of their door in East San Jose saying, I just was told I have twins and I just gave them all my rent money for one. And they're saying I have to pay double for this abortion now. And then we give them an ultrasound and they just have one
Wow.
baby.
Those
So
lion dogs, those
I've
lion
heard that.
Yeah,
Wow.
Chris has 3 locations, Chris, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens. 2 of them are in the same building with Planned
No,
Parenthood. One's
one is
across
in
the
the
street.
same
Oh,
building as Planned
okay.
Parenthood.
And what the other one's
And
across the street?
and one is across the street.
That's excellent, Chris. That's
And
excellent.
well, we've been in the one across the street since 1995,
Yay.
and the same building since 1999.
Wow. Well, I knew you were on the front lines.
And
Hence-
we're across the street
your
from a
name.
small abortion clinic in Queens and another one around the corner. We've always tried to stay close to them, but
Yeah. It's really
of course,
important.
most Planned Parenthoods will not do an ultrasound in advance unless you've already paid for the abortion up front.
Wow.
Right. And they
And
won't
then
let them see it, right?
Wow.
Yeah, they don't want, and yeah, and maybe they won't even let you look at the screen.
Mm-hmm. That's what
That
we're
is the
told.
game changer. That's the game changer when they hear the heartbeat and you know,
Well,
because
not all the time.
yeah.
Ultrasound has been a little bit oversold by those that don't practice what we do.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, if they see an ultrasound, there's no way they're having an abortion. Well, I'm afraid that's not the case.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not the case, but it has made a huge difference in the percentage of women
Oh yeah.
choosing life, and especially if you watch the faces of the men who aren't there for the beginning of that appointment, but who are invited in if they're in the waiting room or in with a male health coach that we have. They have told themselves and believe it's a blob of tissue till they see that screen. And a lot of them, you know, a lot of the couples we get are married couples, probably same thing in New York, right? They're not young teenage patients, right?
Well, we see many couples in their late 20s and 30s, but
Yeah.
very few of them are married. But
Okay.
we do see predominance in 20s, 30s, 40s,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
a small percentage,
Of
maybe
young people.
10% in 18 and under.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we did an interview with Sylvia Johnson. She's in the 5th Ward in Houston, which is like gang central. And these girls would come in. Gang members are like sending their girlfriend in to get it done. They talk them out of it. And she's had some drive-by shootings because the gang members just did not like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
them talking these women into choosing life. So some of these, and which, you know, brings up the whole, you know, sex trafficking, you know, women that are being controlled. I'm
Oh,
sure they're getting pregnant. What's the percentage of women that are living that lifestyle, and you know, do they come in as well? I mean, you know,
Well, it's very difficult for us to identify trafficked women in New York. How about for you in California, Valerie?
Well, we do see them and we do identify them at times, but you know, it's not always easy to identify that person. We don't ever talk anybody out of abortion or talk them into choosing life. We always give them enough good information and support that they will choose life. So our approach might be a little bit different, but
right. So we named the show Choose Life, capital LIFE, because Jesus describes himself in John 14:6. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life.
Amen.
And we know when we preach the gospel, like you said, and Chris, you had taken a call. I don't know if you mentioned or heard that part of Valerie's story, but she had chosen abortion, which led her to crying out to God, getting saved, the best day of her life. So sometimes the crisis leads us to crying out to God when we've never prayed before, and God shows up in mysterious ways. We come to faith, and that's really the game changer for the rest of your life, going into eternal life. So, Valerie, maybe talk about your approach as to, you know, sharing the gospel and having that opportunity, because you may just see him once. How do you bring up Jesus? Chris has always talked about it. You can't start with that, lead with that. They'll run out the room on you.
You can't lead that way. You have to build trust. Our advocates, optimal health coaches are really well trained to ask good questions, to be very holistic, to care about them and ask them, to share what's going on in their life physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And we know that at least 65% of them are going to self-identify as church-going Christian or Catholic. So if they do that, that's an easier bridge over to what the word says and what, the opportunity to at least pray with them. We're not necessarily sharing the gospel on a first visit. We're sharing God's love. We're sharing God's truth, but we're not asking for a decision from them in that way on a very first visit when they have all this conflict going on in their life and circumstances, and they haven't even seen their ultrasound yet.
Right.
So as soon as we get an opportunity with them again, we build on that. And again, if they're a Buddhist or a Muslim or, we see everybody here in the Bay Area, and I'm sure in New York just as well. The melting pot is very similar. So,
that's good.
It's
Wisdom and discernment, right, Chris?
Appealing to their moral code. That's what we want to say, is appealing to their moral code and what's right and wrong and how they grew up, and then sharing a few scriptures with them as well.
That's good. Yeah. Chris, I think I can't get away from the number. Over 38 years, I think, in all your centers, you've counseled over 150,000 women. I mean, not you personally, but you and your team. That's a lot of people. And
we for a good 10 years we were doing a lot of consultations on the streets too.
Wow.
We did a 7-year mobile clinic and sidewalk counseling operation in 3 boroughs. We saw many thousands that way too. A lot of
taking it to the streets. Doobie Brothers. Did that inspire you?
We since COVID, we've cut that program back, but we hope to get it going again this summer. We may be partnering with some live action volunteers.
So you're a little more activist, it sounds like.
Well, I believe reaching women on the streets is no more activist than running a pregnancy center. It's just a question of location. You have to see them. I mean, if you're eyeball to eyeball with a person, does that make you an activist? I mean,
no. I mean, sidewalk counseling is great.
I'm a compassionist.
Yeah.
And if that brings me to the streets sometimes, okay, maybe I'm an activist too. But
well, that's good. I mean, because the Great Commission is go therefore make disciples, and it's not like go to Africa and when you get to Africa do it there. That actually translates as you go. So sometimes you're walking along the street, you just never know where some of these conversations are.
We've done literature distribution in the summers where I had 30 volunteers. Yeah, we would set up tabling and televisions with abortion videos and have street discussions. But most of it was focused in front of abortion facilities. And then the staff would make every effort to bring them over to our offices. And we did mobile ultrasounds for 7 years. It's a very difficult ministry to do well. It's extremely difficult. It takes a lot of management and a lot of.
That's why we haven't. Yeah, we haven't done it.
Right.
I can't imagine doing it in New York. I mean, unless you're in the rural areas using.
I started with a Class A motorhome in New York. Would you believe it? I was driving that beast.
And didn't you park in front of one of the Planned Parenthood, and then they turned that into a no parking zone? It's amazing some of the opposition you get when you start trying to be proactive, and it's all about location, like you said, right?
Well, it's another abortion brand. But we were able to squeeze in a Class A motorhome into 3 parking spaces right in front of the door of an abortion clinic for maybe 9 months until they got the city to create a no stopping, no standing zone anytime.
Wow.
But it's we then downsized to 20-passenger minibuses, which were a lot shorter, about half the length, and we could get into a parking space and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they weren't all measured off spaces, so, but a car length and a half, and we weren't able to get in front of that particular place again, but we were able to get close. And, you know, but the key is when you're doing the sidewalk work, you need very compassionate, very effective communicating sidewalk counselors, and they're very hard to come by. And they're actually almost rarer to find a good one than it is for work inside of a pregnancy health clinic. You just have to have the right personality and character
Right.
Mm-hmm.
To approach strangers on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something
Yeah.
many people working in pregnancy health clinics would ever do.
Yeah.
There's
Scary.
introverts, extroverts, and you know, we all have different gifts and talents. And I always
Yeah.
look at your centers a lot like a church. You know, we can invite them to come. Valerie, you said you spend a lot of money, 6 figures on digital marketing to get them to call, to get to set that
Oh, yeah.
appointment. And, you know,
Mhm.
catching a fish and reeling them in and getting them into the boat, there's an art to that. But then
Mhm.
again, you have advocates, and that's why we want to do this show, so we can have good conversation, good word bites that people can use when they listen to professionals like you two talk, not emotional, point driven. So
What do you
we
mean
can,
not emotional?
I mean, to the point where you're arguing and you lose somebody. I mean, there's relationships are crashing and burning. They're like blocking people now. They're unfriending people because they don't, you know, pro-life,
Yeah.
pro-choice. And at this
Yeah.
point, you know, the conversation stops. So I always say Isaiah 1:18, right there in the middle of that verse, God says, let's reason together. Although your sins are as red as scarlet, I can make them white as snow. But I love that let's reason together idea. We need to reason and talk about this stuff. And the enemy just loves when, you know, to get people to shut down and separate and divide and conquer and, you know, unfriend, and relationships being broken when we should be reconciling and encouraging and supporting one another. So that's, again, preaching to the choir here. But,
You know, a lot of Christians who hear about pregnancy centers and advertising, and then they hear the topics of advertising and marketing and going, well, don't you just put out brochures in churches and stuff and laundromats? Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, in the old days, it was a lot easier marketing.
Mhm.
You placed an ad in the yellow pages. You had
That's
to
what
place
we
it 6 months in advance before the phone book came out.
right.
Now, in a city like New York, we had as many as 12 major phone directories.
Wow.
So it was expensive.
Mhm.
You didn't place ads in every one of them, and you couldn't place large ads in but a few. But today, it's very sophisticated and complex and competitive to market. Google has suppressed organic search engine results,
Mhm.
labeled us with pejorative labels.
Mhm.
Our maps don't show up on organic searches anymore
Right.
because Biden and the pro-aborts teamed up to suppress this through heavy pounding of Google. I mean, it's come completely clear to the world
Right.
that through Elon Musk and
Right.
what sinister machinations went on between the federal government and Twitter and
Big
Google.
tech. Right.
Yeah,
All
big
big tech.
tech has been completely Democrat partyized.
Right.
Mhm.
It's just the one and the same. They'll pay these organizations for the messaging they want. They'll get them to agree to violate. And when government collaborates with private enterprises to squelch our voice, they're violating our First Amendment.
Absolutely.
Google, Twitter, Facebook are private companies.
Yeah. I tried to
Make it
boost our last show and it got declined because it's a social issue. I'm like, so what? Who else? What else are we supposed to be talking about on this? Social issues or political?
Facebook, on your own Facebook page?
Yeah, so I disputed it and then they approved it. But and again, sometimes you just got to check the box. It's a social issue or a political ad, and they just want to make sure you're verified. So you personally are responsible for the ad. So sometimes just an extra little hoop you got to jump through. But
yeah, so I mean, pregnancy centers have been attacked since the 80s, and we have, but this is the latest attack that really hurt us. Is the crippling of our organic search engine results, which means, hello, that doesn't mean more brochures in the backs of churches, sweetheart.
No, it doesn't.
A lot more money on Google advertising. They'll take our paid ads. Hello, they'll take our paid ads, but it's more competitive. We have to come up with alternative advertising. We have been doing advertising on websites and on apps with sophisticated algorithms to find women that might be researching abortion. We can't use Google search as a tool to do that. It can be done if you're paying for ads on Google, which of course is the most important advertising venue for us. And I'm speaking for most of the sophisticated pregnancy centers who do advertising. Some don't, and it's like they're Neanderthals if they're not, honestly. To run a pregnancy center without advertising is just not worth the trouble.
Yeah, I'm sure, Valerie, you got somebody assigned to that on your team.
Centers that just put out a shingle in their window on the sidewalk and say, "We're open for business," and they just rely on whoever walks by. I mean, that's not. That's
well, you have to show up here. This is where you have to show up. This is your billboard. This is your ad. This is everything right here. So if you don't come up on somebody's phone, they're not gonna find us. But yeah, we have someone that spearheads, and that's her number one job full time is marketing. So she's doing a great job. But we have a lot of vendors that we use and pay quite a lot of money to do these things for us.
Yeah, and I mean the sophisticated shops like yours, if you're in the 100,000 plus marketing range, and I'm close to that, but to get to the $200,000 or $300,000 marketing range, you have to have a big network.
Yeah,
and you have to also have a very sophisticated fundraising operation to raise those kind of dollars.
Yeah. Well, God's been good to us. We have been able to do that.
That's great. I mean, I'm a kind of a sophisticated mom and pop operation.
Yeah, Chris had a marketing. You came out of the marketing background, right? That's you did.
Yeah, I do too much myself because I haven't had the sophisticated board members in terms of marketing skills, and I've taken.
Well, my board doesn't do any of it.
Yeah,
the board is an overseeing board. I mean, they're not a working board, but I've been able to build a staff of 45 paid people in the Bay Area.
That's
over
a lot.
The last 15 years. It is a lot considering we started. I mean, we have a $4.3 million budget this year for 2023. It's expensive like it is in New York City, to leases and medical personnel and staff and all the other things we're doing. It's not.
Yeah, that's an enormous budget.
We are very business minded. We're very business. We call ourselves a businessry, not just a ministry.
Amen.
Because we have to do the business of the ministry well in order to be effective.
Right. Well, I'm glad we're starting to do these on Tuesday afternoons here on our show. When we're done with these episodes, OvercomersTV.LIVE/choose-life. This is episode 12, and we just have a lot of testimonies. These are some of the videos we finished for Chris for EMC, Expectant Mother Care, Frontline Pregnancy Centers. And then there's even some of the people we interviewed there. This was a client that came in that day. And then we have some of Valerie's staff. There's Sean Carney and some of the people we interviewed for 40 Days for Life. And here's also Carolyn's been on our show. She has a Christian maternity home in Naples, Florida. Some of the people we interviewed with her. And then even down below that, there's Candace Keller. I just texted her. She's in Virginia. She was a congresswoman that ran some legislation up the hill. And speaking of Hill, there's Valerie Hill and Real Options. And there's her husband. Your husband's awesome. Jerry's amazing. And there's our entire interview. So we're trying to get a lot of resources going. But then, here's EMC Frontline Pregnancy Center. And then there's the Real Options. So what I want to do is maybe spend the next 15, 20 minutes talking about ways people can get involved and support your ministries, because again, you're just talking about budgets. We believe the body of Christ, if that was the country, we need to support our troops. You guys are Christian workers. You're the Christian Green Berets, Navy SEALs for the Lord on the front lines. So Valerie, maybe, and if you want to start, and then Chris will talk about your website too. I can zoom in a little bit, but there's your homepage. Talk about some of the resources or things people can find. While you're talking about it, I can maybe scroll through it.
Absolutely. Well, the main number one medical service that is requested is an ultrasound to determine viability, but in a consultation when it comes to their decision that they're going to make. If it's an unplanned pregnancy, not all of them are. Some people are happy to be pregnant. We provide prenatal care for women through 24 weeks so that they can get their Medi-Cal or other insurance in place. We provide abortion pill reversals to women who have taken the first abortion pill, which in California, our governors now, as of this year, putting the abortion pill on every college campus.
Wow.
So it's very, very important that students, and we have campus clubs, and we have a manager that manages full-time the campus clubs at San Jose State, at Berkeley, at Santa Clara University, and other schools locally where we're reaching out to students through student-led clubs and tabling in their quads so that they know they can come into our clinics, and we'll provide abortion pill reversal, prenatal, STD testing and treatment, well woman care. So there's a lot that we're offering, plus the pregnancy loss healing for women that have suffered an abortion or a miscarriage or a stillbirth. We have a testimony of a patient who came to us for abortion pill reversal, and she's a married Catholic mother. And the reason she chose to do that through Kaiser and Planned Parenthood was she was in fear after a previous stillbirth. And instead of giving her counseling or even an ultrasound to see if her pregnancy was healthy and viable, they just went straight to the abortion pill with her because she was so afraid.
Wow.
And after crying all night, she called us the next day, found us online. How do I reverse my abortion? And she found us, and she has a beautiful 4-year-old daughter. We did an update with her last year. So we have a YouTube channel you can find, not through the realoptions.net, but through the Friends of realoptions.net, which is a different site. Down in the bottom right corner, there's the little YouTube link. So
cool.
Yeah.
That's right here, the little YouTube. There you go. Bingo.
Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, you've really put together an amazing organization. And it takes a mammoth amount of money to fund all those services, and
It
I'm so
does.
glad you've been able to do it. You know, I'm still on a much more modest, under $1 million budget, and can't do all of those things. But we
That's why
will
you're
try to
working so
raise as much as we can so we can
Yeah.
expand our competitive position to the many abortion clinics here.
So talk
Yeah.
about this, Chris, the give now, pay later. That sounds like a pretty good marketing campaign to me. I mean, the whole world's doing that.
Yeah, this is a new thing. This is something I would believe Valerie has not even heard of yet, and that would be something. But it's a nonprofit team of people who got together and they formed a for-profit. And what they do is they allow a pledge to be made to a nonprofit and paid over 4 months
Wow.
of up to $3,000. And the organization, Givesly, will send me the $3,000 now
Wow.
and charge no interest and charge no fees. And there's no credit check on the donor, no background check. They're going to take the risk that the donor fulfills their pledge.
So someone's underwriting what they're doing.
Well, that plus there is a $6,000 annual fee to the charity to use the service.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're putting out the money to you, waiting on it. So that money's got to be somewhere. There must be.
Yeah, they float the
Fun, yeah.
money. They probably have banking arrangements that fronts the money for them.
Mhm.
And I think it's a new way that younger donors, who knows, older donors, maybe somebody that only has $100 to give now, but they could pledge 500,
Mhm.
and that 500 will come to us immediately. So what do you think, Valerie?
Well, I'll have to check that out. That's something I haven't heard of. We do pledges at our annual event. But as you know, when you do your own pledges, you got to follow up with those. And
Yeah, and they're usually monthly or quarterly or an annual, or maybe even a multi-year pledge if it's for a very big one.
Mhm.
This is a little different. This is for the people that are not major donors, but for minor and
I'll have to check it out.
hoping to be
Yeah.
more significant donors.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit about the diaper donations while we were there filming in late June. And just to preface this, again, I see God's sovereignty in all this. So Chris and I planned on filming like in April at the end of June. And as I was driving from Florida to New York, that decision came out on Friday about Roe v. Wade being overturned. So again, I was born in the Bronx. So again, not only being in California with you a year and a half before, now God, when Roe v. Wade is coming down, that two Bronx guys are hanging out in the Bronx in Manhattan with all the protests and stuff. It's crazy. Valerie said she saw some of our Facebook Live stuff going on, but but they had an 18-wheeler donated of Huggies. So here's a bunch of guys that are in their 70s, some 80s that were unloading these boxes. Eventually, God said, put away the cameras. You got enough B-roll. Start unloading these boxes. And we filled up 4 or 5 storage units. Right, Chris?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, to say they were donated wouldn't be completely true. I do have to
Okay.
pay for the shipping and handling
Right.
and the broker who arranges it. So it costs me that money and then storage fees.
Right.
So it's there's no such thing as a free lunch. You've got to pay for something.
Right.
But these Huggies are worth $35 per case, and I'm holding there.
Oh, yeah.
The ball cap on the right side. Those 2 boxes there, they would cost you $60 to $75 in a Walmart or a Costco's.
Yeah. In Costco, they're expensive.
You know, these Huggies is a top brand, and they're not cheap. So giving a case of diapers to a mother we partner with Bright Course. So before a mother can get donations, and we give away many other things besides diapers, but they must each week watch a video, which is a video of the Bright courses. It's an educational component. They can watch their courses on their phone. There's a mandatory quiz. They pass the quiz, and it shows completed. We see the records, and we know. Then we give them, a shopping basket or two of goods every week if they complete their educational videos on
Wow.
parenting, raising babies, budgeting, uh, communications. There are also Christian videos about the Christian faith. That's optional. But watching a video and getting the stuff uh, is mandatory, so that we want to make sure that people are not just coming to get a freebie. We require education go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
We
You
don't
incentivize.
We don't have a points program,
Sort of like the old earn while you learn kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but we're not. The learning component's very simple. Watch a video, fill up a shopping cart or two, and we're giving everything: seasonal gifts, clothes for adults and children, household decorations, bathroom kitchen aids, cooking equipment, appliances, small appliances.
Warehouse. You must have a warehouse to give these things from.
Well, we have storage in about 6 different locations.
That's expensive. Yeah,
it is. But
which is why we do the show, to help raise support. It
Yeah.
takes money to do anything, whether you're giving someone a sandwich or diapers. And that's, again, we're trying to raise awareness of those like you that are intentional, have thought through ways to help. We're not just debating here. We're like, we want to help. How can we help?
Well, we partner with other groups like the Sisters of Life and Bridge to Life. They'll come and bring a truckload, an empty truck, and we'll charge them like $3 a case to cover our shipping and handling. And so they cut me a check, and so we can move more product quicker out the door. We don't spend years holding on to stuff. We want to deal with the bigger distributors, that are working with a lot of mothers and providing a lot of support. Now, these other partners don't require an educational video or something like we do in our own program in the South Bronx. But I just feel we're getting a lot of immigrants. They're not, we have a lot of videos through Bright Course in Spanish. They don't know anything about American medical care and medical protocols, and you can't use cloth diapers in New York City. They're illegal. You can't not use cloth diapers in New York City. You cannot put them in washing machines. You cannot clean filthy diapers in laundromats. It's against the law. You must use disposable diapers.
Wow.
And so the point is,
that's news to me. I mean, I've always heard the whole landfill argument and the push for cloth diapers, but
well, it has to do with the it has to do with the sewer system. You have to be able to handle what goes down those toilets, and unfortunately, you don't want to ever put a soiled diaper down a toilet, and you don't want to have waste inside of publicly used washing machines. Right. It's not a good idea. It's not good for health, public health. So anyway, there's a lot of things people have to learn from other cultures. Maybe they just don't understand the means and methods we have of raising babies, the dangers of certain type of sleeping arrangements for the safety of newborns. You don't want to sleep with a child in your bed. You don't want to crush your child. You want to be
Mhm.
careful about SIDS.
Yeah.
Sudden
Parenting classes is important. Again,
Yeah.
these are young ladies that
Yeah,
don't
you
know
have
what
to
to
teach
do.
these
And
immigrants. I mean, we're getting. Yeah, so we have a law in New York City where we have to house immigrants. You must. It's a legal requirement. We have about 70,000 homeless living in shelters and hotels in New York,
Mm.
and that's going to probably double or triple in the next couple of years.
Mhm.
So these people who come into the country, they get some cash. They don't have a lot. They don't have, but there are a lot of pregnant moms in this group, and we want to give them whatever we can. So when COVID hit, I said, look, this is not the time to cut back. This is the time to build, give out more,
Yes, that's
partner
right.
more, spend more on the mothers, try and figure out what they need the most.
Yeah.
I partner with Amazon and Walmart's big
Mhm.
time operators.
Mhm.
I deal with
Yeah.
the tractor trailer loads.
Yeah. Chris, I love your heart. That's awesome. We got about 3 minutes so we can land the show at an hour and put that in for rebroadcast too.
Valerie, why
Yeah.
don't you talk about the volume of people you see, the uh, both in your educational programs in the schools and in your pregnancy centers, and a little more overview of the whole picture of what you're doing.
Well, we see about 2,200 unique patients, at least we did last year. About 1,000 lives saved, uh, and we always say that that's triple. So you're not just saving babies from abortion, but you're saving the parents.
Right.
You could say 3,000, right? But we talk about lives safeguarded. College campuses, we have about 500 students that we have interactions with. We give out a coupon for a free ultrasound in our clinics and see about 250 students a year through that outreach on college campuses. The education, we're seeing, like I said, about 2,400 students. Should be a little bit more this year because we're increasing territory and schools that we're going to be in with healthy relationship and sexual risk avoidance curriculum. And we have 5 Rachel's Vineyard bilingual retreats for women and men for pregnancy loss healing. One coming up on the 20th, and we also do online support called Hope Support every Thursday evening, and it's online. We went online for COVID, and we stayed because we have women joining and men joining online support for pregnancy loss from all kinds of areas now. So there's no boundaries, right? There's no borders with the online help that we're giving. But we
That's
also
awesome.
do the practical support. We have a practical support room in every clinic. And so there's diapers, wipes, baby clothes up to 2 years. Everything's been washed and is in beautiful condition. If they need a car seat, we buy a new car seat.
Right.
We have some maternity clothes and other things like strollers and high chairs that come in and get cleaned up. They go out as fast as they come in. Like you said, we don't want to be storing stuff. We want to be giving it away. We
Yeah.
give prenatal vitamins right away to patients, even in an undecided mode, to help them feel better and take better care of themselves so they can make a healthy decision. And
Yeah.
churches donate a lot of diapers, wipes, baby formula, and those hand knit crocheted blankets and things like that churches like to make.
Good.
I'd like to
That's
suggest
awesome.
that
That's
we
good.
talk further about the diaper
Yeah.
program.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, this is all the time we have for today's show. And this is
All
why
right.
we do it, talking about practical ways that we, the body of Christ, can help. And so appreciate what you guys do. I got the left hand and my right hand here. Been to both places. Love you guys. Wish we had more time to hang out, but there's a lot of work to do. So as
Thank
we
you.
huddle up, not every Tuesday you guys can join us, but I know Candace Keller said she's going to join us next Tuesday for sure. Raul Reyes, and we have just a handful of superstars. But I'm glad we're on the team. Valerie, can you close us in a word of prayer?
Sure. Father, thank you so much for your grace, your mercy, and your goodness. Thank you for equipping us and empowering us to be bold and courageous and to stand for life, especially in the states of New York and California. And Lord, we just ask for your Holy Spirit fire to go across our country, Lord, from the north, south, east, and west, that people would start seeing, have their eyes open to who you are and to your mercy, your grace, and your goodness through salvation with your Son, Jesus Christ. And we just thank you and praise you. We ask you to draw those that need to hear and see these programs on Choose Life. Draw them to the life-affirming clinics and centers around all over this country, Lord, and multiply your work for your glory in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
We may need to go into overtime. Mike Lindell just texted, "Hey Chuck, are you on now?" So, hey, I own the channel. We can go over. I'm on a call with RNC. Okay. Let's see.
He wants to chime in
because he's trying to get off the call with RNC.
Yeah. Well, we need him in the RNC.
He'll be back, I'm sure. Good.
Yeah.
Should we wait for him?
Absolutely. I'm texting him. We'll wait for you.
Sure.
This is great. So, yeah, I mean, I can always go back and cut out some of Chris's or my blab, my preaching. I'll cut out my preaching. I'll leave you guys. But that's so cool because, you know, when I met Mike, just a little prelude of him coming on, 2019, we were in Anaheim, California at the NRB convention. And because we both got rescued from a crack cocaine addiction, one of my board members a few months earlier says, "You should meet Mike Lindell. You know, you got the same testimony." I'm like, "Yeah, how am I going to meet the My Pillow guy? Let's get back to our agenda." And here we are in February 2019. He goes walking by, and Annette, he had the mustache, and he looked familiar. And I was like, "Was that so Barry that we just met?" And he goes, "No, that's Mike Lindell." And I heard the little voice of my board member saying, "You need to meet Mike Lindell." So I yell out, "Hey, Mike." He turns around and said, "Here's my card. One of my board members says we need to talk. We both got rescued from a crack cocaine addiction." Turns into an interview the next morning. And because he helped fund the Unplanned movie, these guys called him, you know, and said, "Hey, we want you to play a cameo." He wired him $1 million as he's getting on a plane to go to Israel. He says, "This just has to be a good movie. It has to be a good message to get our families there. No contract, no nothing." So as I'm interviewing him about this, and then Annette says, "Hey, what's next?" He says, "Well, we got the Lindell Recovery Network." And I'm like, "Man, I know some people have got some testimonies." So we just been, you know, now here we are. And I'm just like, it's just mind boggling that along the way, and he's just really, you know, got a passion for overcoming addiction, choosing life. And so, you know, I say all that because, you know, now he's got Frank's speech, cancel culture. If they don't line up with the narrative or your message, you're getting canceled, or algorithms like Chris was talking about, buried. No one will see it.
Well, I watch him on Flashpoint all the time too. He's doing a great job.
Yeah. And the whole election fraud thing, I always say it's, you know, I listen to him. They got more evidence now of all the cyber hacking and data being, you know, changed, manipulated. Anybody who's anybody knows once you start submitting data through the internet, it's subjected to change. I mean, you know, China, Russia, they've been hacking databases of companies just for personal information, social security numbers, and all that. So I always say, if this ever did go to trial, it would make the O.J. Simpson trial look like a misdemeanor. And that went on for 6 months with DNA evidence, right? Just the whole IP forensic stuff. I mean, it's there, but nobody has the time to really go through it. And, you know, and Mike always tells me, he goes, "Chuck, this is stuff straight out of a spy movie, you know, that you see."
Oh, yeah. Well, he spent a lot of money on it. And so did Dinesh D'Souza on the 2000 Mules. So, yeah. And if you ever watch Epic TV on Fridays, you've got Kash Patel. He's definitely telling the truth going on there. But
Yeah, exactly. So I just said we're talking about you, ready for you. I'll resend them the link to click on. But you know, at the end of the day, it really takes what comes. And again, another cliche. I wonder who said it first, and you might know the quote. All it takes is for for evil to prosper is for good men to sit back and do nothing, and women, right? But we can't just sit back and let people with their agendas and dictate some things. We got to stand up. We got to be a voice. There's a good, better, best way of doing that. But we're advocates. Talk a little bit about that until we see Mike come on.
Well, we just, we have to be proactive in our faith, and that's part of the problem that we have, and why the country's in the shape it's in is the church has decided to be apathetic and fall asleep, and the pastors don't want to talk about abortion because they call it political, and they don't want to talk about politics, even though Jesus talked about government, and he's the King of Kings, and the government is on his shoulders.
Right.
And
Isaiah 9:6. Love that verse.
yeah, and
good.
he came to save nations. He came to save nations. He cares about nations, and he cares about this nation.
Right.
So I'm always preaching this. I don't even, not just even to my team and board members, that we have to stand up for what we believe in as the church, or we're going to lose. And we can't just lay around hoping for our rapture rugs to take off. That's just not the way God called us to be.
I say we're still here. He hasn't taken us out yet because there's still work to do, right?
Yeah, there's
we're
still
the
work
church,
to
we're
do.
the hands and feet. Yeah.
And revival has to happen in the church. If you think Jesus is coming back for this bride, I have news for you. He's not. In my opinion, I don't think.
Well, the bride doesn't walk down the aisle until everything's perfect. The eyelashes, the hair, the dress. I mean, so yeah, we're not ready to run down that aisle yet.
No, we have to wake up. The church has to wake up. And I think Mike has worked on that as well and said a lot about that. And I agree with him. The church has got to wake up and rise up and be in every sphere of society, be involved in politics, government. It's government. Be involved in education, be involved in entertainment and the sports world, be involved in the economy and the financial, being involved in the family, and not just leaving our kids to be raised by Neanderthals in the schools and lose their salvation in college and be brainwashed. It's just can't happen.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's why we have to be proactive.
And that's part of this show too, is to talk about how we can be, proactive advocates in our legislative and judicial systems. And again, another twist of a phrase, that separation of church and state was in the context was that the state will not run the church.
That's right.
Jesus is the head of our church. He has all preeminence. And that doesn't mean that the church shouldn't influence government. That's not what that means.
Right.
It means that the government will not. It's the tail that won't wag the dog. The government's the tail, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Again,
that's exactly right. I mean, if people just would take some civics education, and there's some really good Christian organizations teaching civics and government now, and enlightening the body of Christ about the Constitution, instead of just being lazy Christians. Because if you think about it, people only care when it comes to voting. All they care about is what's going to affect their pocketbook, which is just so sad and it's just self-interest. But they don't care how it's going to affect the children, the unborn, the elderly, or the rest of the world and the culture. And God's going to hold us accountable. He is holding his church accountable. I always call Real Options God's kingdom work in the Bay Area, because I don't want to hear about people telling me we're parachurch or we're political. We're God's kingdom work in the Bay Area. This is his work. And so I think that also translates to the supporters as well.
Well, I've been a little more political than many pregnancy centers because we have been the frontline battlefield of any city. We've seen more attacks on pregnancy centers that have to be defended against. I have about a dozen lawyers on speed dial because,
Wow.
interestingly, a court case that I had brought when we were subpoenaed by the New York Attorney General 2 attorney generals ago in 2013, taken up on appeal the subpoenas. They were seeking records of our donors, credentials and names and addresses and credentials of every employee, every volunteer. Well, the majority of a court of appeals ruled that the subpoenas had to be scaled back. Well, guess what? One of the judges in that panel was nominated by the governor of New York, the current governor, in the last few weeks, to be the chief supreme judge of the state of New York. And the leftists have gone after him in large part because he partially sided with us in a matter of the subpoena. Basically claiming because he was opposed to overly zealous witch hunts of pregnancy.
It is a witch hunt.
Because he was opposed to that.
Yeah.
The left say he's pro-life. He sides with pregnancy centers. He sides with the right. Therefore, he's unfit to be a judge. And what leftist organization would tolerate a subpoena seeking the donors of the organization?
Wow.
Right.
Or the credentials of all their volunteers? They went over the top. This guy was very reasonable, as were the other judges that scaled back the subpoenas. But see, just defending yourself.
We have to do that.
Just if some supporters want to say it's political, well, tough noogies.
I know.
We're going to defend ourselves and have done so since my first attorney general went after us in 1987. So
I've lost supporters because they think I'm political, but I don't care. That's fine. I'm not going to be like the silent pastor in church who won't talk about it because they're afraid of losing money. We can't be like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, pregnancy centers have been attacked
from the beginning.
Citywide, countywide, statewide, and federally. And you may not know that New York State passed a law in the summer of 22 to call for a statewide Department of Health investigation of every pregnancy center in the state.
Wow.
This is a unique one, a new one. They are behind in getting organized, but they're going to come after us sometime this year. I've lined up representation for a half a dozen pregnancy centers using the American Center for Law and Justice. But New York City has ramped up through political pressure on the city and from the city council, which is predominantly Democrat, at 51 members and maybe 46 or 7 Democrats. We're a one-party state. So the pro-aborts get their way plus. So they have $1 million New York City abortion call center. So they are advertising this in competition with us in the pregnancy centers and other abortion clinics. They're inviting women from across the country to come to New York, free travel.
So did Newsom.
free
So did
accommodations.
California governor.
Yeah. But here
Yeah.
they probably throw in a dinner and a show in
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and in our increasingly expensive hotels, because many of the hotels have been taken over by the homeless shelter division to house the homeless. Even 4-star hotels are
Mhm.
being used to house
Wow.
the homeless now. But
Wow.
they're preying on these women coming in from over the border. They're
Sad.
coming in by the busload, and they're
Mhm.
thousands and thousands that are pregnant, and they're trying to get them right into the abortion mills. If this ain't political, if anybody thinks that abortion is not political,
Yeah.
they are just heads in the sands. They must have just got back up from Australia and are trying to
Yeah.
emulate the ostriches, because
Well,
you cannot save babies. You cannot serve expectant mothers if you're under constant barrages of political and legal attacks. And if
mhm.
you're smeared, slandered, and
Mhm.
smashed day and night, we need to unify and
Right.
fight back as a movement.
Right.
And I'm going to the March for Life since
Right.
1980. I'm going to
Right.
be honored at the March for Life on Friday, the morning of the march, because
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm tenacious. Peggy Hartshorn from Seattle originally, Tom Glessner, the Bells from New Jersey, Chris and Joan Andrews Bell, and a few others, Denise Coccioni, who started First Way, a spinoff of Birthright. So, some of us have been a little more aggressive on the political sphere than others. I've
Right.
been applauding Heartbeat for doing these babies go to Congress, babies go to the State House.
Mhm.
They're bringing the results of the hard work of pregnancy centers to the politicians to show them, look, we're not monsters. We don't bite.
Mhm.
Okay, we're
We're here to help.
we're not all conservatives. Some of us, not me, but some lean to the left, and that's okay. Um, if you believe in liberalism, and that is, being open-minded, um, not judgmental, tolerant, truly tolerant of people who have made mistakes, who are making them every day, who live in sin, who live aberrant lifestyles, maybe have been brought up in households in 3 or 4 generations with no two parent households. Um, do we abandon them? Do we judge them? Oh, they're Muslims. Oh, heck with them. No, Jews. Oh, of course, come on in.
Mhm.
We're not religiously discriminating, because
No.
most of us happen to be Christian
Mhm.
running the pregnancy centers. We live people of all creeds and faiths.
Yeah, there
Mhm.
is no racism. There's only one race. It's the human race. And every baby is a human baby. It's a human race. And it's not
Mhm.
but even back to your point about it being political, in some countries, it's illegal to talk about Jesus. That's where that is. And again,
Mhm.
we're
Mhm.
talking about the creator of the universe.
That's
It's
right.
illegal because of religion. So there's lawyers that are fighting for the right to at least preach the gospel. That's the
Mhm.
first, if that law changes, that's again a
Right.
real game changer. But whatever the laws of the land are, we have to be advocates there.
You know,
If we go
in
quiet, then they automatically win.
That's
Valerie,
right.
you probably heard about this, but a couple of weeks ago, this might have happened in December, early December. A woman was near an abortion clinic in England, and she was just standing there, and she had no signs. She wasn't speaking to anybody. And some bobbies, you know what a bobby is? That's
Mhm.
the name
Police.
of a cop in
Yeah.
England. And they came up to her and they said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm standing here." "Well, what are you doing?" "Well, I'm praying." "What are you praying about?" "Well, I'm praying about what's going on in this clinic in here." "Okay." So they arrested her. They arrested her for thought crimes, for praying privately, silently, in her mind,
Yeah.
to tell the truth,
Mm-hmm.
this is what the left wants to do in
Yeah.
our country.
But
They
they're
want
not
to
going to, you
criminalize,
can't stop
they want to
God.
criminalize prayer. In the
You can't
county in which
stop
I
God.
reside, which is Westchester County, the home of the Clintons, Westchester County is the northern bedroom community of New York City. And our county has suppressed speech by a law passed this summer, which makes it a crime to approach or hold a sign or to speak with anyone within 8 feet of going near an abortion clinic.
Mm.
Wow.
Now, how can you communicate on the sidewalk without speaking to someone or being able to hand them a leaflet or a pamphlet?
It's a
Outside of 8
violation of
feet?
the First Amendment. I mean,
Outside
there's
of 8 feet? I mean, so you have to get their permission? What do you have to throw them a clipboard that they throw back at you? Yeah, here's the signature. You can talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is insanity. So I lined up plaintiffs to sue the county of Westchester, and the lawsuit's been filed. He's one of my lawyers on speed dial. We're getting to the point where the free speech suppression against those who are not abortion advocates is getting severe.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the ludicrous excuses of the FBI to have no people of interest or arrests made after scores and scores of pregnancy centers have been vandalized or even firebombed.
Mm-hmm.
No arrests. They took 5 months to reveal the security photo camerage of the firebombed upstate New York, Buffalo, New York Compass Care Pregnancy Center. 5 months they gave the people to change their appearance and hide and still, and they put out a $25,000 reward. 5 months later, no arrests.
Well,
No
there's
people.
that's not just, there's no justice, there's no free speech. I mean, we have lost a lot in the last few years rapidly. And I mean, there's people that have been in prison in a DC gulag jail since January 6th of 2021. That's 2 years.
Well, most of them were arrested in the weeks following. There weren't too many arrests that day.
Okay, well,
But you're right.
with no due process.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
if that
incredible.
can
No
happen,
speedy
anything
trials,
can happen.
inhumane prison conditions, just political
Repeated
prisoners,
strip searches.
political prisoners.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's,
saying that some of them didn't. The vandals should pay the price. Most of them should be already out with time served for vandalism.
yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
heck, in New York, you can
Well,
if you don't shoplift more than 1,000 a day, you could shoplift $9.95 a day every day of the year, have hundreds of arrests, and be out on the street every day to do it again and again.
Same in California.
It's incredible the crimes you can get away with.
Right.
The summer of 20 was open season on federal buildings, on courthouses, on police. Dozens seriously injured or killed by protesters. Mostly peaceful, right? As CNN said, mostly peaceful. And your great U.S. Senator or former Attorney General Kamala Harris was bailing out these hooligans in by the busloads,
right?
And said this is what these people do. I mean, it should go on as police are getting pelted with deadly force. You know what started the American Revolution? British soldiers being pelted with ice rocks in Boston. And do you know who defended them? John Adams.
Yeah.
Mm.
They were the Americans were using deadly force against the soldiers with rocks inside of ice balls. Now they were throwing worse at police, and then they let them out like, oh, that's a nothing.
Yeah.
That's nothing. And fortunately, the police controlled themselves and didn't shoot, except they shot, of course, Ashley Babbitt in the Capitol building, which was a murder and a cover-up of murder.
Well, the
And
whole thing was staged and a big lie. It's just as much of a lie as everything else you've heard in the last 2 years from the FBI and the CIA and the government. So, I mean, it's all a lie. I don't believe any of it. But I wouldn't watch CNN if you paid me $1 million. So, anyway,
Yeah.
how about
I
you,
think
That's good.
I don't think we're going to get Mike here
Yeah, I
tonight.
just texted him. I said, wrapping up. Want to join next Tuesday, 4 p.m., or should
Yeah.
we keep on going?
Maybe
But
he
I
needs
know-
a little. Maybe he needs something like the hour before, because he's
Yeah,
he's this busy every single day, every minute of every day.
and he knew we were doing this every Sunday night, and I
But
usually
if
when I
you,
do talk to him, it's a Sunday afternoon. But
yeah,
he knows we do this every week. He gets a copy of the show every week, and
okay,
we'll definitely work him in. I know he's going to want to jump on and at some point, but
yeah,
I'm glad you two got a chance to connect. This is a great show for those
yeah,
who are joining us, and I'm excited because we're
we have
making an impact.
a lot in common, Valerie. I just
yeah.
wish I had your leadership skills, but I've tried to live up
It's,
to my modest ones. But I ask for your prayers because I'm dealing with 2 stage 4 cancers.
oh wow.
But I'm going out with my boots on, and or at least my socks. Who wears boots to bed, by the way? They might have used to, but if I have my shoes on the bed, I get hell from my wife.
Well, there's a lot about healing in the Bible, and I happen to believe in it. So I will pray for you, Chris.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
I
you.
mean, this is the second he had it as a teenager, and he believed God healed him, and
Yeah, I had cancer at 15 too.
I
Of that,
just
I had
heard somebody talk
radiation.
about that. You have to contend continually for your healing, because the enemy tries to steal, kill, and destroy every day from all of us. And
Well,
most people aren't.
I openly talk about it. A lot of people keep their medical conditions private, and I don't. When I'm a public figure, people want to know how you're doing, and you can't
Mhm.
hide a serious illness
That's
when you're a public figure.
authenticity. That's authenticity, and that's good.
Yeah. I once heard my pastor said we're not exempt, just because
Yeah.
we're Christians and even serving God, we're not exempt from some of the things. And,
No.
Now,
and
I said
God uses it.
I've been marching since 1980 down in Washington. Now I can't complete the full march. I will be spinning off to my favorite headquarters. It's called the Dubliner. It's a pub. Yes, I've had a few Guinness in there. Anyway, Valerie, I know it's a major trip. You probably don't come out to the March for Life.
No,
You've
I've
got
been
some-
invited a few times, but I
But you go
watch
to the walk, some of those walks for life in San Francisco, right?
West Coast. Yeah, West Coast
And
Walk for Life, which is
you
supposed
do
to be
that
very
at San
large.
Fran, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm about an hour south of San Francisco, but
Okay, that's perfect. I've been to one.
yeah,
So if I make another one, I'll visit you. If I
let me
visit,
know. I would love to
I
have
went
you.
to my first Catholic Leadership Conference with the Napa Institute in the summer.
Oh yeah.
And maybe I can spin down to you from
When you-
Napa next
Yeah.
summer.
Give me a little heads
How
up.
far are you from Napa? About an hour and a half?
Closer to 2 hours, depending on traffic. Yeah.
Well, it's a
Hour and a
daily
half,
commute.
2 hours.
It's a daily commute for 10 miles for California, isn't it?
One of my nurses actually commutes 2 hours to
Wow.
work for us.
10 miles away, right?
No, not that bad.
I'm
Not that bad.
teasing you. You've
Yeah.
got some bad traffic, but New York's
Yeah.
no picnic either.
No, it isn't. Yeah. I'm
Washington,
from
D.C.
Connecticut. I was born in Connecticut.
it's-
I'm an East Coaster.
Oh, are you really? No kidding.
Yeah.
Transplant, West Coast transplant.
I'm an Italian transplant from Connecticut.
Well, you'll
Yeah.
have to show me where I can get some good pizza in California.
Okay. Yep.
Good deal.
Absolutely.
Forget
Let's
the
do
hell-
the fist bump. Don't break your camera, but we're going to
Okay.
close with the fist bump. Love you guys.
Love
And
you.
we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Blessings
All
to
right.
you.
Thanks.